Olá a todos, bem-vindos a mais um projeto da Associação MVC. Desta vez, o nosso novo projeto chama-se Let's Talk, em português, Vamos Conversar. Este projeto surgiu em parceria com a instituição OIP, Oeste International Partners, e consiste em haver uma conversa semanal entre um estrangeiro e um português. A conversa será realizada em inglês ou na língua que seja mais acessível a ambas as partes. E será uma conversa fluida sobre costumes, experiências, gostos em comum, todos os temas que possam imaginar. Bem-vindos a este novo projeto Let's Talk. Vamos conversar? Hello everybody, welcome to a new project from Associação MVC. This time our new project is called Let's Talk, in Portuguese, Vamos Conversar. This project appeared from a partnership with OIP, Oeste International Partners, and it consists in a weekly conversation between a foreigner and a Portuguese person. These conversations are going to be natural, about experiences, common tastes, and all the themes you can imagine. Welcome to this new project.
Hi everyone, Margaret speaking here from Caldash, and it's really good because we're welcoming Catarina, who's actually in London, the Portuguese lady who lives in London. So if you were with us for the first episode, I was on that talking about St. Patrick's Day, and today we're going to talk about our experiences living in a foreign country. So that's me. I'm retired. I've been retired here now for 4 years, and I absolutely love it. And I'll pass you over now to Catarina so she can introduce herself.
Hi, so my name is Catarina, as Margaret said. I'm an occupational therapist. I moved to the UK in September 2019. And I just started working as an occupational therapist, really, because I was working as an assistant for a year to get used to the surroundings and everything. And I'm living currently almost in the border between London and, I would say, Surrey. And I'm terrible with geographics, but I'm not really in the center of London, but I'm really, really near. And I'm loving it here. So it's quite the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. And I don't think many people can afford to live in central London, can they? Most people live in the suburbs.
Oh, 100%. The suburbs is, well, everybody that I work with, we all live in the suburbs because of that. It's just really, really expensive. 100%.
So how do you feel about living in London? Well, the London area. I mean, do you like it?
I fell in love with the city. I'm not going to lie. The first time, so when I moved to the UK, the first couple of months I stayed in Surrey just until I got a job and fixed everything. But I went to London the first time, like after 2 weeks, to get to know the area. And I absolutely fell in love. And I knew that I didn't want to stay in Surrey at all. So I just started applying for jobs in London. I love living in London because it's very multicultural. You know, I love meeting new people, different cultures, different interests and experiences, and just learning from other people. So I can find out a lot about the UK and London, but also can I learn about other amazing countries and people. And it's really, really good. I do live in an area that is quite calm. So Bunny is really, really relaxed. We do have some traffic still, and it takes us 40 minutes to get absolutely everywhere. But it's really, really, really nice. I really love it.
So you have a long commute to work, do you?
Oh, yes, at the moment I do, because I'm in Southwest London, and now I'm working East London. So I have to go across the city to actually work, which is not ideal. But I'm going to move closer to Greenwich, which is going to be also a lovely area to explore.
Oh, so Greenwich is beautiful. Yeah, you'll love Greenwich.
Oh, I can't wait. Really can't wait. And you said that you live in Caldash, so you live really near my hometown.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't live in Caldash. I live outside of Caldash, between Caldash and Salió de Porto. I don't know if you know, yeah. And you're from this area, aren't you, Catarina?
Yes, I am from Peniche, the capital of surf, as they call it, and it's actually quite a difference from London to Peniche. It's quite a big difference in the beauty of it all, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah. For example, Peniche is about the beach and the sea and seafood
Yeah.
and fish, and it's very based on our in our coast. And here is absolutely just a city environment. Yes, we do have the river, but it's quite different. It's quite
Yes,
different
very
from
different.
yeah.
We are lucky. We have a fishmonger that has a little van, and he comes 3 times a week to our village, and
Oh,
we get the fish directly from Peniche.
oh, that that's such a coincidence. I think we do have. It's a big port as well, and we do have a lot of commerce when it comes to fish. In Peniche is a big source of income for most of the citizens there. Always have been, and throughout history now. Of course, everything is developed, and we do have other sources of income. But definitely, Peniche is a big source of fish for the area. So I'm really glad that you're taking it from my hometown.
Brilliant,
At least
yeah.
that makes me feel a bit more happy, isn't it?
Lovely. So what made you choose London as a place to go to live and work?
Well, it was an easy choice, I think, just because I always wanted to live in a country that, English was main language because it's accessible. I've learned it in Portugal a little bit, not as I know it now, but I knew a little bit of English. And I thought, well, from all the countries that I can go into within the European Union, England would be the best option.
Mm-hmm.
And London is also known by its amazing features and monuments, and I thought, well, I've never been to the UK at all, so I might join the good thing of getting to know London and working somewhere with an English spoken language, let's say like that. And yeah, so I chose to come here. Also, I had a friend that could help me out sorting things out. I came without a job, just really looking for it. And I don't know if you're really aware, but we do struggle a little bit to find a job in Portugal, especially in the healthcare setting. So
Yes, and
I
it's not
also
as
did a
well
bit of
paid,
digging.
is it? Yeah, and the pay
No,
isn't
not at
as
all.
good.
And yes, exactly. And then even the career. So what I searched before coming here, and that's what made me just flip the switch, and I just said, okay, it's a go, and we're going. Was here in England, if you work as a Band 5 occupational therapist, which is, well, the baseline, and then you go from there, you can actually develop on your career. Whereas in Portugal, because of the crisis, everything kind of stopped. So you can increase and you can develop a little bit, but not as you would here. So after a year or two of being a Band 5, I can actually become a Band 6, and so on and so on. So I can actually have a great career here and develop and learn a lot more in different settings as well, and have a job that I had like 7 or 8 interviews. So it was like I could choose where I wanted to go. Whereas in Portugal, I sent, so many CVs all the time and nothing really replied back. Nobody really replied back. So it was also because of that.
Yes, it's sad really, because I think Portugal is losing a lot of its young people because of that problem. So it's quite a sad state of affairs, isn't it? Yeah. And do you have any regrets about moving? Are you really happy with the fact that you've moved to London?
I wouldn't change a thing, because I feel like I don't believe in regret. Even though I regret a lot sometimes in small things, I don't believe that this much of a big decision I regret at all. But I would do a bit more preparation, just because I love everything here. But when it comes to like legal documents and national insurance number, for example, it took me about 2 months. And if I had known, I would have tried to get a hold of that sooner. I would have prepared documentation sooner as well for me to get a job more quickly. I would have probably studied a bit more English, because once again, when I got here, I got absolutely lost. I could not explain myself at all. And it was just, so I feel like I would have prepared a bit better, or came a bit after, I don't know. I feel like I'm in the right place right now. And I feel like actually London is my home at the moment, which I'm it took a bit of time, but definitely I'm really happy to be here, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Great. I mean, comparing administration, I think the administration in Portugal is a lot longer and harder than it is for for you in England. To be honest, it's red tape is terrible here, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I've noticed it here is actually a bit quicker when it comes, for example, sorting tax codes, and the way that works as well. Like I can wait an hour on the phone, but something is actually done that day. And the next day or 2 days after, I receive a letter with everything fixed. In Portugal, that does not happen at all. And we're very, very slow. We're very, very slow.
And you do like your paper?
Yes. Yes. We don't like anything that is... I found it so amazing. For example, the banks here, you can do absolutely everything online. Absolutely everything. I can create a whole new bank account nearly online, and back home I have to go there with a pile of paper to justify everything. I can't even imagine for you how that must have been like to change.
And then you have to initial each page, and then you sign at the end, and then you have to do that 3 or 4 times.
Yes, for absolutely everything, from banks to housing to any type of contract. It can be really tricky.
Yes, very much so. I mean, we're lucky in this area. I mean, people who don't speak Portuguese very well, there's a lot of help out there. A lot of help on Facebook, and there are people who actually charge for being for helping you, and it's quite reasonable, and they come along and they help you with the different documents. So that's quite good. But yes, I thought, because when I was 18, 19, I moved to France to become an au pair. And I thought the French paperwork and administration was bad until I moved to Portugal. And then it's even worse.
Yes, it's even worse. And when you moved to France, did you find it as well? Because when I moved here, I'm 24, so I'm quite young. I moved here when I was 22. So both my birthdays were on lockdown, unfortunately. But did you feel like it was really hard to start, because also it's a different language, to get to know people, to get to know the culture, the things that we need to do, so the routines, and did you find it really hard as well, both in Portugal and France?
It was a completely different era, because when I moved to France, it was in the 70s. So we're talking about a long time ago. So I couldn't look anything up on Wikipedia. I mean, I didn't have a phone. There was there wasn't any real information out there. So it was a bit hard. But I think when you're that age, you don't worry about things. You just, go with the flow. So little by little, I felt like I was kind of like drowning for about 3 months. And then all of a sudden there was a click. And I started understanding people, and I was able to communicate. So that helped. But there were funny things. Like, I remember being really shocked. I was in the south of France, and the different au pair girls in the area, we got to know each other quite quickly. So I was with a friend, and we were visiting Marseille, and we got lost. And so the first thing I thought of, or we thought of, was to find a policeman and ask the policeman for directions. And so we found this gendarme or whoever, and he looked at this, as if we were mad. A completely different culture. You don't approach a policeman to ask for directions.
Yeah. And even the tone and everything that you say, isn't it? Because I felt the same way, asking for, how to do things and whatnot. It was really, really hard. It was really, really hard. So Anna asked, she said that it's great to listen to you. What do you miss about your homeland, Margaret?
Good question. What do I miss? I miss my children and my grandchild, I think, mostly, and other family. But the big difference nowadays compared to when I moved to France is that now, with modern technology, you can call your family every day if you want to. You have video conferences and whatever, FaceTime, WhatsApp, and so it's so much easier. Whereas when I moved, my parents didn't have a phone. We used to write letters to each other. So, and that took, weeks for an exchange. So
Yeah,
that's a very big difference.
yeah.
How about,
Yeah,
and there are some foodstuffs, but you can get virtually anything nowadays. So that's fine. How about
that's
you?
true. Definitely my family. I've only been to Portugal twice since I've moved. Haven't spent Christmas with
you were
them.
unlucky with the lockdown, weren't you?
Exactly, yeah. And also my job really required me to stay and to be a bit more proactive, in the sense of, not that I was fighting the virus 100%, but initially, yes, I was on front line. So it was, that bittersweet moment that even if I wanted to go and stay there, I had a duty to fulfill as well. So it was really missing my family, and having that sense of also the food. Mom's food is always the best food. So I truly miss my food, and the fish as well. I feel like if I go to Brighton or a coast city or something, I can actually get the amazing fish from the UK. But if I go to a restaurant or something, it's always fish and chips, which I do not really appreciate.
Once in a while, it's okay, but
exactly, but not all the time. If I miss fish, I'm not going to eat fish and chips all the time, for sure.
Yes, and the problem is, if you want to get something good in the UK, it's very expensive.
It is. I found a big difference between so I also miss a lot the cheap meals in Portugal, because it would be like cheap meals everywhere. Here it's like you go to a restaurant and you pay so much, or even a beer. If I go out for a beer with a friend or something, it's absolutely so expensive. In Portugal, it's like sometimes 80p's, isn't it? And it's fine.
Yeah,
and then you get here, it's like 3.50, and you just end up
a big shock.
Yes, exactly. Oh, and we have another one. Which part of your own culture that you will keep dearly, Margaret?
It's a bit difficult for me, because I'm quite European, really, because my parents were Irish, and so I was brought up with an Irish culture, but lived in the UK. So there's that, English influence. Lived in France for most of my adult life, so then there's this big French influence, and now I'm in Portugal. So I sort of like, I don't know, I don't really, I don't, miss anything, or perhaps some traditions. Like I celebrate Halloween every year, and so I love that, and I still do that, even if it's just for myself, because people don't go in for Halloween very much. So nobody will actually see me apart from my husband, but I do, get dressed up.
Yeah.
and Christmas as well.
I do the same. Halloween is a must. Even though I'm Portuguese, I think that they kind of went all over the world, didn't it? So I do do myself some Halloween celebrations as well. It's really nice. It's really nice. It gives you life. And Christmas,
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, and it's good
all those
fun.
Holidays. Did you say as well St. Patrick's? Do you celebrate St. Patrick's?
Yes, St. Patrick's Day is very, very important for us as well. Yes. So before COVID, with a dear friend of mine, we organised some, an event for St. Patrick's night, which was very, very popular, and we had lots of people, and it was a great success. And we meant to do that the following year, but then COVID arrived and we couldn't do it. So we're looking forward to doing that again.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I feel like the same for me. It's just I do miss the holidays, and I do miss those more, I don't know, cultural events. So, for example, we do have a lot of, Portugal is very based on religion, isn't it? So I do miss some sort of celebrations. Not that I'm very religious myself, but my hometown is very religious. So we do have a lot of parties in the summertime. I do miss that. I also miss, São João, and even in my little village, we do São Bernardino's celebration as well. We have like 3 or 4 days of party where the family comes together and everybody from the little village just hangs out and, has a lot of fun, and it's really, really good. So I think that's what I miss the most about my side of things in this case.
Yeah. And it's true in Portugal that even small villages, they have that festa every year that lasts for 5 days, and it's really, really good. The only thing I find difficult is that the music stops around 2 o'clock in the morning, but then you get woken up by the bangers in the morning at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. You can't sleep. No,
it's true.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. We also have Carnaval, especially in Peniche. We live it a lot as well. And for 4 days, 5 days, especially if you're young and if you want to celebrate it like we do in Portugal with everything, we do spend a lot of time awake, dancing and probably drinking, which is not as healthy. And I don't miss that part of it, but I do miss the fun and to getting dressed and being with friends and get all the party together. So we would like create our own outfits, as like our Halloween, but for 5 days. So we would create a different day, different costume, and just getting together and sharing experiences and creating memories. I think that's something that our culture, I think we have a lot. Here in UK, I don't find it as often. Like everybody goes out on Friday evening, Saturday evening, but not like big celebrations and getting people together. I think because also it's a big town, isn't it? A big city. We don't do that as often. I
think probably probably in Surrey perhaps, or in other areas where you have smaller villages and towns that they have fates and different things like that are a little bit similar to Portuguese, but not the same. Definitely not the same.
No.
A couple of years ago, we went to Lisbon to celebrate, for the Sardinhas and São Antonio, and it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Loved it.
And I think
and you feel safe. You don't feel oppressed, even though there are crowds and crowds in the streets. You just feel, it's just good fun.
It is. I'm going to ask you a question because I don't know. I feel like I've been told this every single place that I go. They say a lot that Portuguese people are very, very welcoming. So, for example, I'm working in a hospital, and every single patient that I meet, I work in care of elderly at the moment, and they always say, "Oh, every single Portuguese people that I encounter, they're always so nice, they're always so welcoming. I always want to chat with you." And then I notice that with sometimes British people, they tend to be a bit more, not cold, but like a bit closed initially, isn't it?
Yes, they're more reserved. Yeah. And I think that's why I love Portugal so much, and I liked France as well, because with my Irish upbringing, it was more like a Portuguese upbringing, because, very, very large families. My mother was the second of 12. My father was in the middle of 11 children, so lots of aunts, uncles, cousins, and, big celebrations like that. And coming here, it's just like coming home in a way, because it's a similar thing,
Yeah.
And also being very, very welcoming and always offering to help if you need anything. Like in the neighbours in my little street, they just offer all the time to help out. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And I just I really hope it stays like that.
Yeah. I've been struggling actually a lot, because once again it's London, and getting along with everybody is really, really difficult. I do have a Spanish housemate, and we get along really well. And because we're also really European in that sense, what I have, I share. What she has, she shares with me. So it's not the same as, well, it's kind of like she's my neighbor as well, but we really do have that thing. And at work, you can also tell. So, for example, if I take my lunch, I'll be like, "Oh, do you want to try?" Or "Do you want something?" And sometimes I notice that that doesn't happen the other way around. But I really, truly don't mind, because I think that that's how we're raised. We're raised in big families. I have like 40 cousins. So we're used to getting together and share a lot. So I do understand where you come from with the, being welcoming and, just wanted to share and to interact. I do feel that.
But I don't think the British are unfriendly. It's not that. I think it's a question of reserve and not wanting to intrude and not wanting to impose. It comes from a different place. It's not that they don't want to be friendly, because they are very friendly. But it's just you have to get to know them.
Exactly, which is not that bad, to be fair, is it? And it's quite reasonable as well. I do find the British culture to be a lot reserved, yes, but also they're very formal.
Yeah.
You're very formal, but in the best way possible as well. It's like they respect. It's a lot about respect as well. So they will respect me by not intruding, isn't it? And being a bit more reserved. And when they feel like they can actually do something, then they will do it in a respectful way, I feel like. And it's sometimes we can be the other way around, isn't it? I'm too friendly. For them sometimes can be a bit like, oh my God, what are you
over
doing?
the top. Yeah, over the top.
Exactly. But definitely I do notice that. What other things do you feel like you notice differently? Because I know tea time here, for example, we do have I love my tea now. I became a tea person, Margaret.
Yes.
I love myself.
Whereas you would drink coffee before, wouldn't you?
I still do drink coffee first thing in the morning, but that's it. And then I just drink tea from then on. And sometimes I don't even, like, if it is Saturday or Sunday and I'm just relaxing, I'll just drink my tea.
Yes.
But what do you find like that you've gained some habits as well that you didn't used to have?
Portuguese habits, you mean?
Portuguese habits.
I don't really think, not so much, because I'm lucky in that my husband does all the cooking at home. So he prepares all the food is French more than Portuguese. But I suppose, and we don't tend to go out to cafes too much, because I know that here in Portugal, you can't just have a cup of coffee. You have to have a cup of coffee and a pastel de nata or a cake or something.
Oh, really?
I found that, yeah, that's quite strange. But I don't think I have. No, not really. Not yet, anyway.
Well, that's also because you have another influence, isn't it? You also have the French culture influence as well. So that makes you a bit limited in that sense of like you're not going to fully experience as well, because you have also that French influence, isn't it?
Absolutely. And although I get to my neighbors are really friendly, what I do find different here is that in France, when you start to get to know someone, well, one of the first things they do is they will invite you around for drinks, and then you get to know each other in someone's house, someone's home. Whereas that doesn't happen here. It's all outside of the home. You eat out, you go to the local association, you go to cafes. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever really been invited. Well, rarely I've been invited into someone's home.
Yeah, that is quite true. I do feel like when it is people that we grow up with, let me put it that way, it's easier. Or neighbors, yeah, like the neighborhood. We do go into people's houses a bit more. The way that I was brought up as well, I'm afraid I was also like, I never went out to friends' houses that often. And I find it really weird here that also sometimes they ask me to, oh, do you want to come over? Like, let's do some dinner. And I was like, oh, okay. So you cook the dinner and I'm going to your house, and what do I bring? Because I've never done this before. Like with friends, of course, we do gather, and in uni, we're used to that, but not here. So I don't know, like, for example, I'm going to a friend's house, and I'm like, oh, they're a couple. Should I bring a bottle of wine or something? I don't know what to do.
I think you can't go wrong with a bottle of wine.
No. Normally Portuguese bottle.
Yeah, Portuguese wine is pretty good. Yeah.
I can never fail. A red wine, Porto, normally does the job.
Yes, absolutely. Mind you, the Portuguese wine in the UK is a lot more expensive than it is here.
It is. Even Lisbon wine, which is not that it's bad wine, don't get me wrong, but still it's a lot cheaper in Portugal. Here it's so expensive. I bought a bottle for Christmas time so I could remind myself of home a little bit, and I went for Lisbon wine instead of Port, because it was just so expensive to buy Port. It was so expensive.
Yes, so you need to once COVID is finished, you need to invite some family over so they can bring you supplies.
Yes, that's the plan. And also to go back to Portugal and to visit everything. But yeah, I really can't wait. And it's so unfortunate that the pandemic is affecting us this way, isn't it?
Yes. In a way, it was good for you, because the National Health Service needed people, so you were able to get your, to get a job. But on
Yes.
the other hand, it's just terrible. I hope you've been protecting yourself and that you've been okay.
Yeah, I had the virus during Christmas, unfortunately. I was slightly unwell, but I did not need any like hospitals or anything. But now I've got my 2 vaccines, so I'm quite happy about that. And it's a relief for me and for my patients and for my team. I hope that you are doing well as well, and that you haven't got the virus by any means.
No, we've been very careful, but we're still waiting for vaccinations. It's a little bit slower. The rollout is it's a lot slower than it is in the UK.
Oh yeah, because we're really halfway there to have everybody with the first vaccine.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. But I hope that very soon we can all travel and we can all do what we are, used to do, and to socialize and to be with other people, especially.
Yes, because we're all social animals, aren't we? We need each other.
We are.
It's very
Definitely.
difficult. Yeah, it's very, difficult.
Very.
I'm lucky in that we have, we mix with a lot of French-speaking people. So we have quite a few Belgian friends and French friends. And we go on walks. So we walk 3 times a week. And so we're outside. So
still safe.
Yes, still safe. And then we go and have a beer together.
That's great. That's really great. I feel like everybody's been so isolated. We really truly need a connection. I think that's what I feel. What I feel the most is feeling lonely. Even though I have housemates and even though I interact with people at work, I still feel so lonely sometimes and isolated. And I can't even imagine how especially for me, I still work, but like for you guys that are over there, they're finally having your rest, isn't it? To be so isolated at home, it must be terrible.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, with modern technology, at least you're able to connect with people online, so that's really good. And we mentioned this before we started about language, and I thought it was quite strange to hear you say, well, not really strange, because the same thing happened to me when I first moved to France, that you found it difficult now to speak Portuguese.
I do. It's so hard for me to speak. I end up, for example, tube. The other day, I was trying to tell my dad what the tube was, or that I was going into the tube or something like that. And I said, "Oh, pai, vou entrar no tubo." And he's like, "No tubo? What are you getting onto a tube for?" And I was like, "Oh, well, tube is actually, metro is subway in American English."
Yeah.
So it's so hard for me to disconnect. Also because once again, I worked throughout the whole pandemic only English speaking. So it was really, really hard for me to get back to my normal language. But you were also telling me that it gets a bit easier, isn't it?
I had the same problem as you when I first moved to France. And I think you're so concentrated on getting the language right that you then sort of like your own language. And especially at that time, because I didn't watch any English television. I didn't have any English input whatsoever, apart from the few friends I had. So yes, I found it very difficult. But then as time went on, and I used to be able to then go back on holiday once I was married, and then it kind of all fell into place, and it was a lot easier. So don't worry, it'll come back.
Oh, thank God. I'll do my best to practice it still, so we can also speak in Portuguese maybe another time.
Absolutely. And do you have any Portuguese friends?
I do. So I work at the moment, finally, I have a Portuguese colleague, which is great because we can actually, and she's from Lisbon. So we do speak a little bit in Portuguese, but also because of ethics at work, we really can't speak that much. So it's only after work and it's like for 10 minutes and then we go. And I do speak with my friend. Then I was living in Northeast London as well, like the other side of London. And we do speak from time to time. We chat on the phone now because once again, because of the pandemic, we can't really see each other anymore. So I do have some Portuguese contact, but not that input that I was used to before. Like before the pandemic, even I was going to meet Portuguese friends all around London, and we would talk a lot more, and like at least once a week. Now I don't have that much of Portuguese input, but I think hopefully this will get better now that everything is easing off here in the UK.
And
so.
Because in London you have like an area where you can buy Chinese foods and products and different areas. Is there a Portuguese area of London?
There
Yeah.
is, and I knew the name 2 days ago, and I forgot again. I know that it's near Clapham, I think. It's in that. Is it Brixton? It's not Brixton. Probably it is. Probably it is Brixton. I know that it's around that area because it's between where I live and the place that I work in Lewisham. So I know that it's in between those two. That's actually a really nice place with the Portuguese cafes and everything. And also there's a really good one with Bitoc. No, it's not Clapham. It's in Camden Town. So before the market and everything, there's a little Portuguese restaurant, and me and my Portuguese friend, we go there all the time when it was opened, with no restrictions, of course, or even during summer last year, we did go there at least once. It was so lovely because once again, we eat exactly what we eat back home. It tastes exactly the same.
Yes. And it is true that when you live abroad, you do need to sometimes have that connection, don't you?
Yeah. We really do. It's just to make it a bit closer to home, because once again, as you said, we have technology, but having that sensory input, not just the visual and the auditory, but also having the taste and the warmth of the food, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's good. So that's great. And so you work mainly with elderly people.
Yes,
How do you find that as a young person?
It can be so tricky because I work in acute. So basically, they're inpatients that just went in after, I don't know, a fall or something. So sometimes most of them have dementia or something that it's a bit. They have a lot of impairments. I can count by my own hands how many people I have that actually have mental capacity, that I can actually discuss things with them and to prepare them for discharge. So that for me was a bit hard, just because I did work with people that had brain injury before, but we knew exactly what was going on. With elderly people is we do know what's coming sometimes, and it can be really tough in that sense, because I always want to make somebody else's life better, and knowing that sometimes things get worse when they're in acute or eventually they get really sick. That for me is really hard to deal with. But I learned so much from them, and sometimes they give us the best life lessons that I absolutely just take with me forever and ever.
That's lovely.
It's really, really rewarding for sure.
Yeah, that's good. And do you intend to continue working with elderly people, or do you plan to do something else later on?
So we do rotations, 6 months rotations. So I'm going to be working with care of elderly now. Maybe I'll try to do emergency department or brain injury again for the next few months. I do see myself working a little bit more with elderly people, but maybe in a community setting. I'm really curious to see the community as well. Because it's really different. Inpatient is like you don't have enough time to do everything and you just rush. And I really like to get to know people and to see them in their environment and actually thriving in that environment, rather than me checking the house and then adapting the house and then send them there and never see them again. So I really like to work with elderly people more in a community setting. I think that would be really beneficial for me.
Oh, that's lovely. I do wish you all the very best with that, because not everyone can work with the elderly. I mean, you do need to have a lot of patience, and sometimes it can be hard.
Yeah, it can be really, really tricky, but it's worth it, because you do change people's lives. Even though it might be small things, you can actually change somebody else's lives with a small thing that you change. So it's really nice to see that, for sure.
Yes. And you've got such a lovely smile. It must really cheer them up when they see you.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think we can't really show that much. Sometimes what I do is like social distancing, but sometimes they also wear masks. So like we're allowed to be like, so this is how I look like, and then put it back. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. To see you smile is so nice to see you smile.
But do you know that the eyes are very important in a smile? So I'm sure they can see from your eyes that you're smiling. So
I hope so. It's for me, it's really reassuring when I see somebody else's expression. So I can't even imagine how it's like for them to just see my eyes and try to get.
We're definitely living through very hard times. very hard times.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is a great initiative as well. This project is really good to make us feel a bit more connected as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I quite agree. Okay. And any other questions or anything that I think I've wrote down a few things, and I think we've gone through everything that I wanted to ask. So
Yeah, I think I went as well, because I really wanted to ask more like about the culture and how you felt with just socially interacting as well, despite the virus, how you would adapt to a new country and everything. Because I really wanted to hear from you that I've been through this twice, and this is my first time living in a different country. So it's quite reassuring to hear that it gets better.
Absolutely, and I think if you're open, anything's possible. So you just have to look on the bright side and to sort of like really be positive about anything you do. Then the world is your oyster, really.
Definitely, I'll take that with me as well. Thank you.
Just one thing I've just thought of. Is there anything you prefer in the UK to Portugal?
Actually, well, a bit of the quick, everything's so quick. When it comes to, I wouldn't say just the legal stuff, but also like shopping, everything's more accessible. And also definitely also the vegetarian. Yes, yeah. And the vegetarian options as well. Here it's so easy for me to, because I've gone and been a vegetarian, I'm not going to lie, and vegan. So it's really nice to see the options in the supermarkets. Everything is really accessible in that sense. So I do really prefer to live here for that reason, because I can, if anything changes and everything's new, London will definitely have it. England would definitely have it.
Yeah.
So they're very,
things are changing. Things are changing here too. You can get vegetarian and vegan options in Caldas, but in a small village, no.
No, exactly. And where I come from is a small village, so it's like for me to go to town and to actually grab things is also so tricky. So I like that's why I like living in London, I suppose, because everything is so accessible.
Yes, and international and cosmopolitan.
Exactly. Yes, everything happens.
Whereas I think exactly, and when you get to my age, that's not the sort of thing you're interested in so much.
Exactly.
You just want to have a good, easy life.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, Catarina, I think we've come to the end of our talk, and thank you so much. I've enjoyed every minute.
Oh, thank you so much. I also really enjoyed it, and I'm so thankful to participate in this talk today. And thank you for having me and for the warm welcome as well.
It was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. And I really want to keep in touch, so we'll have to exchange emails, okay?
Oh yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Beijinhos.
Beijinhos.
Bye-bye.
Bye.